Is it on? Whoa, yeah.
There we go.
Woo. Yeah, well, well, thank you all for turning out tonight. We've been playing with a lot of changes today. I'll put it that way. Okay, thank you all for coming out tonight. I'm going to echo here. But from the inception of the Democratic, what?
There's an echo on it's a double play.
Okay, what shall we do?
Reverb.
Is there a test? There's extra seating up here. Are we okay? Oh, okay, thanks. So, from the inception of the Democratic Women's Caucus in 2004, when there were no women then on the City Council, the group has strived to raise women's voices in the political process and in government, especially beyond traditional administrative roles. When creating bylaws, policies, and therefore traditions, DWC steering committee members would invariably ask, but what if two women were running against each other? What would we do then? The answer at the time was, we should be so lucky. Now we are that lucky. Women in our community are raising their voices. Through hard work and support from DWC members, women have been elected in great measure, especially in the local judiciary, where 8 of the 9 judges are women. And we have one of them here with us tonight. Thank you, Judge Houghton. We are the only county in the state of Indiana ever with 3 women elected as county commissioners. We have women serving in the clerk's offices, both of them, as our auditor, treasurer, recorder, coroner, and prosecutor, and in many township trustees and boards. Women have run for sheriff, and now once again for mayor. The mission of the DWC is to inspire, recruit, train, fund, and support pro-choice Democratic women. We've done that with programming, training sessions, mentoring, fundraising, and a thorough endorsement process. The aim of our endorsement process was to evaluate the viability of candidates to run and serve, especially in primary elections. We evaluated using objective written criteria. We did our best while dealing with the behemoth we created. It is at this important moment in time that we find ourselves again asking the question, what if 2 or more women run for the same office? Support for women candidates is so important, especially for the new and first-time candidates. So we ask ourselves, how can we best help? Do you think that?
Yeah.
Okay. So we are offering this forum, one that features women candidates. Yeah. Do you want me to do it from one of these mics? Okay. Okay. So we offer this forum, one that features women candidates. We offer it to help them hone their message in front of a supportive audience. We offer them encouragement in this primary so that they can run the best campaign possible. And for the first time, we will offer each of them, who is a DWC member, a fixed amount of funding to cover some of the initial campaign expenses, such as websites, graphic design, and P.O. boxes. So I want to thank you for joining us tonight, and I'll just lay out a few rules and how we're going to run tonight. Tonight's moderator is Susan Luther down at the other end. Susan is a retired lawyer, a DWC member, and served as my chauffeur last year during my campaign. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes for their opening statement. Susan will then rotate through the candidates with questions pertinent to the office they are seeking. Some questions have been prepared in advance to get the program started, but members of the audience can use the 3x5 cards that we put out to submit their questions. Just wave the cards in the air and pass it to the end of the row, and we'll come out and get them. Candidates will have 90 seconds to respond to questions, except for any lightning round, where they expected to keep their answers short to 30 seconds or less. Once time is up, candidates are respectfully asked to complete their sentence so that the next person has an opportunity to speak. Pamela Davidson, who's sitting in the front row, is tonight's timer, aided by Regina Moore. When there's 30 seconds remaining, Regina will hold up a yellow card, and when time is up, Regina will hold up a red card. If a candidate goes beyond the allotted time, or at least much beyond the allotted time, a bell will be rung. So there is an exception to this. Since she has no opponent in either the primary or so far the general, and we hope to keep it that way, we're giving Nicole Bolden, candidate for city clerk, several minutes here at the podium to start. And following Nicole, the 2 female candidates for mayor will be here with us, and then later we'll hear from the city council candidates. We plan to end promptly at 8:45, so let's get started. Thank you. Nicole. Forget it.
So, good evening. My name is Nicole Bolden, and I am your Democratic nominee for city clerk. Now, I just found out when I walked in that I only had a few minutes to talk. I planned on about an hour, so we'll see what shakes out. But I wanted to say, I think it is very important that we're all here tonight, because as an elected official, one of the things that I've learned is how important it is to represent everyone in Bloomington. So when we walk into rooms, we are not just women. In my case, not just a black woman. In my case, not just a black queer woman, but we are representing everybody. So I appreciate and thank the DWC for an opportunity to elevate women's voices this evening. And I also encourage everybody to think about just how very diverse our ballot is this year. We have 22 candidates. 10 of them are women. And I think that is to be applauded. But I'd also like to note that we have 4 people of color on the ballot, which as far as I know is the highest number we've ever had in Bloomington. And we also have 3 LGBTQ+, same-gender loving candidates on the ballot this year. I love this town. I love our heart. We have so much potential to be better, and that is part of what I'm here for. And I want to thank all of the other candidates who are running. We're going to have a lot of change over the next couple of years in Bloomington, and we have a lot to do. So I will be here. I will be representing you. If you have any questions, you can reach me at nicolebolden.com. Or you can call my cell phone number. I believe it's on my website. And thank you all. And I do hope for your vote, even if I do not have an opponent. And if you have any questions from the clerk's office, we are always here for you. So thank you very much.
I'm ready to vote for you, yeah. We're going to take a 1-minute technical break to get rid of this echo.
All right, let's get started. My name's Susan Luther, and I'm going to moderate tonight. We're going to begin with a coin toss because we only have 2 candidates, and, you know, it's very difficult to decide who's going to go first. So I have a coin here, and I'm actually going to say who has heads and tails because that's also a decision. So let's have heads, Carrie Thompson, tails, Susan Sandberg. This is just a regular quarter, okay? I'm going to toss it, hopefully not at someone, and I hope it doesn't go places. It is tails. So Susan Sandberg is going to go with the first question. Okay. Susan, when...
Well, I think statements.
I'm sorry, you're right. Let's do statements. Susan, your 2-minute statement.
Well, good evening, and thank you to the Democratic Women's Caucus, distinguished guests, and community members for all efforts to ensure that we have quality women candidates for local offices. I can't believe it's been 20 years since I first sat down with our founder, Regina Mora, and others to lay the foundation for this organization. Looking back at all the amazing women elected officials leading us through the years, I'm grateful to have been involved from the start, and I am honored to have served at large on the Bloomington City Council. We needed a course correction then when fewer women were running to serve, and we need one again today. Bloomington can be a place that works better for you and works better for everyone. The most valuable change we can make as a community is knowing the difference between buzzwords and action. While others identify the challenges we face as a community, I am outlining solutions. The time for action is now. I've already set the wheels in motion to help mend the torn relationships between city and county governments so we can set aside ego and focus on results. After meeting with industry professionals, I have a 5-point plan to facilitate the development of single-family homes within a reasonable Hoosier budget. I will ensure that we have the number of workers required to provide essential city services, including police and fire departments that are currently and precariously understaffed. I will work with Monroe and surrounding counties to protect our water supply. We need a mayor who already knows how to navigate city government and can make an immediate positive impact. I will be the mayor with solutions, working with others and coming to consensus. I'm Susan Sandberg, already working for you and running for mayor to make Bloomington better, not just bigger. Thank you. What does that mean?
It means Regina's.
Tinkerbell.
Are we ready? Yes? Okay. Good evening. I am Carrie Thompson, and I want to express my thanks to the Democratic Women's Caucus that has been working tirelessly to prepare and encourage female candidates for the last 20 years. 25 years ago, I moved to Bloomington after having chosen Bloomington from the entire country as my hometown. Bloomington was truly exceptional when I rode my bicycle through this community in 1995. We are a community that cares. We are a community that wants to improve our community together. And for 20 years, when I first moved to Bloomington, I was the CEO of Habitat for Humanity here in Monroe County, where I worked across bridges that usually divide people to create affordable housing in partnership with families that wanted to improve their lives. Through that work, I developed a vision for how housing could make a greater contribution to our community and how each person involved in that mission could belong to not only that organization, but could see their path in our community to true belonging. I now direct the Center for Rural Engagement at Indiana University, where we are working in more than 80 different municipalities in 54 counties to help rural leaders achieve their vision of prospering communities. I have done the work. I know my way around City Hall because I have pulled permits. I have worked with the Community and Family Resources Department. I have worked with Public Works. I know how the city works on the ground because I have created action. I have helped house more than 500 people in our community, and importantly, those people now forever belong to Bloomington. That is the Bloomington I want to create, a place where we can all truly belong.
Now we'll have a few questions, and we'll again start with Susan. The first question is, when faced with a difficult decision, who do you turn to for advice?
Excellent question, and there are many difficult decisions that are before the Bloomington City Council. And of course, who you ask would depend on what their level of expertise was. And so having the opportunity over these past 16 years to get acquainted with a number of outstanding professionals in this community who I consider to be experts, I have the luxury of many different people to approach and talk with, and including many of our outstanding department heads who serve the city of Bloomington and have various responsibilities. We are quite fortunate in this community to have a number of people that are experts in their fields, in housing, in healthcare, in education, in planning. And so I am very eager to seek information from people who know more than I do. Thank you.
Carrie, the same question. When faced with a difficult decision, who do you turn to for advice?
Well, I think Susan gave an excellent response to that. You know, any problem, we really have to look at the many facets of that problem. And while experts are great to consult, and we always will need to tap them, I think it's equally important to talk to people on the ground with lived experience who are experiencing whatever problem it is that we are trying to solve. So many times as leaders, we hear different perspectives, frequently not directly from the people who are experiencing the problem. In order to understand any problem, you must listen first to the people who are actually experiencing the problem, and then gather the stakeholders and experts together who are able to help assist in solving that problem in partnership.
Okay, Carrie, a question. In 2022, the City of Bloomington received over $462,000 in opioid settlement money from the state, with more to come in the years ahead. Given that the city does not have a health department, how do you propose using this money to help the people in our community?
Well, just recently, I wrote an op-ed that was published in the Pittsburgh Gazette about how rural communities could really look at creatively using their opioid funding. My answer for our community is the same. We need programs that build hope. And certainly there are mental health services and other direct health services that are needed that can be funded through the county's health department. But when it comes to the city, what we need are coalitions that build belonging and build tangible pathways to hope for people who are experiencing substance use disorder. What that looks like on the ground can be networks of diverse supporters. They can be programs that address adverse childhood experiences in our schools and in our community for the children who have been experiencing homes in substance use. And also, I think, very importantly, pathways to help people belong in places and have things to do that are not dependent on substances and not surrounded by substances.
Okay, Susan, same question, I'll repeat it. In 2022, the City of Bloomington received over $462,000 in opioid settlement money from the state, with more to come in the years ahead. Given that the city does not have a health department, how do you propose using this money to help the people in our community?
Thank you. I certainly have knowledge about this because we are using the city's opioid settlement money to partner with the county. It's my understanding that Beverly Callender Anderson just recently applied for a grant that would allow our portion to be combined with the county's portion and to help in the decision as to how best that money can be used. Now, in my mind, I believe there are already plans in place for how that money can be first applied with our first round of this money. I'm thinking in terms of the usefulness of how we tackle the problem of addictions in our community is to focus on the mental health care. Harm reduction is a critical piece of this, and I think we've invested quite a bit in harm reduction programs. Now it is time to turn into how do we get individuals who are suffering from substance use disorders, how do we help them get better? How do we help them get healthy again? How do we help them become self-sufficient again to where they are not as dependent on various social services and housing programs in our community? So that money is critically important. Money that the governor is allocating toward more mental health in Indiana is another piece of this. We absolutely need to focus on better mental health for our community members, and that means we support the centers that are already here. Thank you.
Okay, next question. This one is for Susan. Many of us believe that budgets reflect our priorities. What are your priorities, and how will you go about putting together your first budget?
Thank you. The first budget is going to be very challenging because we have challenges in our community. As a Sandberg administration, my focus will be on affordability, public safety, obviously better collaborations with county partners and other entities that we need to solve problems in the community. Last but not least, basic, essential city services. Those will be really high in focus due to my 16 years on the council, having been through 16 rounds of budgets. I know that it is a very complicated thing to manage the affairs of the city. We have multiple departments with multiple needs. We need the help of the controller who guides us in the decisions about how we budget for the coming year. That is a collaborative process that the mayor does not do all alone and in a vacuum. Once again, we have to consult the experts and ask for their assistance putting together the first budget.
Carrie, same question, and I'll repeat it. Many of us believe that budgets reflect our priorities. What are your priorities, and how will you go about putting together your first budget?
Thank you. My priorities are 3 in addition to the base of what the city needs to do. First, how we do government. We need to create systems that bring people back to the table and offer them input. 2, housing. Attainable housing for all means that at every income level, there is housing available within your reach. Number 3, public safety, especially as it pertains to substance use and mental health crisis that we're experiencing in our community. Everybody in our community deserves to be safe, not sort of safe. They need to be safe. And in order to do that, we need to take a look at how we are building teams in our city employees. There is a morale problem. And although the city has not had an audit in the last 5 years, we will need to figure out where the funding is to adequately fund our staff and to ensure that we can meet the basic needs, not only of services, but of safety.
Okay, we have some questions from the audience, and we'll start with Carrie. What place do organizations like BLM or Antifa have in our community?
BLM and Antifa are important parts of our community. These are voices that too often have not had a voice and a place at the table. We need to build a community where even when things are hard to hear, we can listen. Not only can we listen, but these organizations are run by and participated in by people who have not had a voice, even when there are controversies. We need to listen and determine what's best for our community and how we can solve our problems when people are feeling othered and left out.
Susan, same question. What place do organizations like BLM or Antifa have in our community?
A very important place. When I say that Bloomington needs to be a city that works for you and works for everyone, that means everyone. So all voices need to be heard. Bloomington can most certainly do better in regard to being open to listening to the voices of people who are not typically represented in our community or who are having particular challenges facing discrimination, facing harassment, not feeling safe in our community. And I certainly agree that public safety is not just about law enforcement, it's about having rich conversations with any individual, with any group who is having difficulties in this community, facing the discrimination, the bias, the inability to get their needs met. And so I can assure everyone that a Sandberg administration will be fully committed to diversity, equity, inclusion, as we are currently now, and as we certainly all strive to do better in this regard. It requires sitting and listening to understand, listening to learn, putting yourself in somebody else's shoes before we make policy decisions or do anything that might further cause harm to any group in our community.
Okay, we have another question. This one again is for Susan. What is your plan for community outreach, specifically to the BIPOC and LGBTQ+ community?
Well, certainly. Continuing on from my statement, this city needs to be inclusive and understanding of everyone. And I was absolutely thrilled and delighted to be on the stage of the Buskirk Chumley Theater when there were the first same-sex marriages performed by then Mayor Cruzan. And those of us on the city council got to proudly stand on that stage and watch that. That was an amazing shift in our country, and one that we certainly want to continue continue in our advocacy for the rights of our LGBTQ community. So I make no distinction other than Bloomington needs to be the city that works for everyone, including those individuals who we were so proud to celebrate their achievements in equality and marriage equality.
Okay, Carrie, same question. What is your plan for community outreach, specifically to the BIPOC and LGBTQ+ community?
Well, I'll restate that listening and outreach is really important, but representation matters. We need to see people leading in our city, and that means elected. We talked about the diversity currently on our ballot. We need to elect people of color and people from the LGBTQ+ community. We also need them represented in our staff, on our commissions and boards. This is really critical because proximity matters. We need the voices inside City Hall as well as outside City Hall. I have also already written an open government plan, part of which is to take City Hall into the communities, to have a mobile mayor's office, to have our department heads and others go into the community. We need leaders visible to our youth and to everybody else that represents who we are as a community. That is the only way we will raise leaders that will represent our diversity better than we have in the past.
Okay, Carrie, the next question is for you as well. What is your plan for establishing a truly affordable housing plan for residents who make less than 6 figures?
So I am about to publish a 5-point housing affordability plan. And briefly, without going into all of the details, the first is to take the 2020 housing study that's been sitting on a shelf and create an implementable action plan to not only create new housing, but to assess the housing stock that we have, as well as the unused spaces that we have that are currently in residential businesses that are sitting open as commercial spaces, because for a long time we have had a zoning ordinance that requires first floor commercial. Further, we have affordable housing that we need to focus on retaining. Every time an older building gets demolished and replaced with a brand new one, we can be losing some affordable units. We need to take a full assessment of our existing housing and look at opportunities to add new housing stock. Hopewell is a tremendous opportunity in front of us.
Susan, what is your plan for establishing a truly affordable housing plan for residents who make less than 6 figures?
Well, first of all, our most affordable housing is our older housing stock, and that's why I fought so hard for preventing the elimination of single-family zoning protections. We've got to protect the older homes that tend to be more naturally affordable. Our incentives are all wrong for incentivizing affordable housing when we check off a box for sustainability and for affordability in these big apartments that are going up. That's not cutting the mustard. So my plan has to do with working with industry professionals who are in the business of providing affordable housing. We've got to partner with them. Then we need to assess where can be the locations for new affordable housing to be built. Then we have to make sure we can support that with our infrastructure and work again with the people in the business of building affordable housing. We then could do some other creative things like creating some supplies for anyone building affordable housing, because it's not cheap, of course, to build new. It's much easier to take some of the older housing stock we have, preserve it, and make sure that we keep costs attainable for the kinds of salaries that Bloomington people have here. The affordability issue is huge.
Okay, Susan, the next one is yours as well. Have you signed the petition to Governor Holcomb from the local chapter of the National Asian American Pacific Islander Women's Forum? Why or why not? And this petition asks for recognizing and speaking out about anti-Asian racism, as well as establishing an AAPI commission.
Well, certainly, I would be in favor of that. I am currently not aware of that petition, and I will be happy to sign it. It is absolutely unacceptable in this community with a university in our center that attracts many people from many countries to live here and who expect to be safe here. And so any effort to make this a higher priority for our community, I would certainly be in favor of and would be happy to sign any petition toward that end.
Okay, Carrie, the same question. Have you signed the petition to Governor Holcomb from the local chapter of the National Asian American Pacific Islander Women's Forum? Why or why not? And the petition asks for recognizing and speaking out about anti-Asian racism, as well as establishing an AAPI commission.
I have signed the petition to Governor Holcomb. What has happened in our community is unacceptable. It is absolutely unacceptable that somebody got attacked on one of our city buses. When I knew that that happened, I immediately reached out to my Asian friends and colleagues to let them know that I was with them and I supported them. I then showed up at the rally to support them and have continued to explore ways that I, with my personal presence and leadership, can speak out against hate in any form and can, this is very distracting.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's okay, Regina. It's like a cowbell, you know. I assume that you're cheering on my my anti-Asian. I can just keep talking and finish my statement really fast.
Bonus time.
What matters the most is that we have the resources to protect people, but even more importantly, that we create a community where this is not acceptable, and that everyone in our community understands what they should do if they see something or they hear something. There is no microaggression that is too micro to speak out against. We must, as a community, stand up to this hate and not let it continue in our community. Bloomington is better than that.
Okay. I got distracted too by the bell. Okay, Carrie, this is your question again. This administration has frequently gone to out-of-town consultants at some undisclosed cost. What would you depend on out-of-town consultants or local citizens to inform your decisions?
Look, there's nobody that knows Bloomington better than the people that live here. If we want great solutions for our community, We need to stop taking cookie cutter solutions and trying to apply them to our community. Bloomington is not a place like any other. We are incredible. We are exceptional. And the opportunities that we have should be captured and maximized in a way that leads forward to a comprehensive vision of who we are and who we want to be. For too long, we have been just sort of scattershot addressing issues and smaller opportunities. The next 4 years in Bloomington is going to determine what we look like in the next 40. We need Bloomingtonians to help us create that vision, and that's what I'm great at. Listening to the people on the ground and weaving a vision that we can all move towards together. As your mayor, that's exactly what I will do.
Okay, Susan, the same question. This administration has frequently gone to out-of-town consultants at some undisclosed cost. Would you depend on out-of-town consultants or local citizens to inform your decisions?
I trust Bloomingtonians. I think Bloomington does know what Bloomington wants and what Bloomington needs. One of the issues we had as we were struggling with the Unified Development Ordinance is we were working with consultants who are not from here. And we were fighting very, very hard to make sure that those zoning codes were reflecting the attitudes of Bloomington neighborhoods who have lived here and who've invested here and who volunteer here. So when I led the report on affordability along with my colleague Chris Sturbaum and Tim Mayer that resulted in the report that was published in 2019 on affordability, it started out being about affordable housing, but we turned it into more about everything that is expensive in this city. The report was called Working Hard, Falling Behind. That was not put together by consultants from Chicago or Indianapolis. That was put together by stakeholders in this community, experts in housing, in healthcare, in food, in transportation, people who understand the challenges that we face here in Bloomington are going to be much better at solving the problems that we know we have, that we know we can do better about.
Okay, well, we've come to an end for the questions for the mayoral candidates. Instead of a prepared closing, I'm going to ask you in a few words, and this will start with Carrie. Tell us the one thing that you want people to remember about you.
I am an inclusive leader with executive leadership experience. For 25 years, I have led complex organizations with large staffs that create action, not just plans. First we listen, then we create plans, then we implement in order to solve problems and take every opportunity that is practical and good for our community. That's what I'll do as your mayor.
Susan, in just a few words, please tell us the one thing that you want people to remember about you.
One thing I want you to remember about me is I will be a mayor that goes to work for you. And that work will include respecting our personnel at City Hall. We need to make sure that those who keep the wheels turning, who provide the services that we all pay our taxes for, those individuals are respected, they're compensated fairly, and they are working out of the pride of being a public servant and working in the public sector. I'll be a mayor that works for you so that this city can work for everyone who lives here.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Susan.
We agree on
We can have our city council candidates come up. I'm going to put your name tags out real fast.
Sorry about that echo.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Boy, the forecast. Yeah, the chairs are a little bit.
Thank you, Carrie.
Oh, you know what? Let me go grab.
You sure
But I'm glad the conversation's happening.
Yes. I have not heard any other suggestions or nominations. Have you? Are we okay? Right here. Right here. All right.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good thing.
It is a good thing.
Do you remember the chamber forum last time when we were at the PCT? And there was this long table, and there wasn't even room for all of us at the table.
Oh, that's right.
Because it was the men and the women, right?
Oh, yes, I know.
Okay, I feel very short.
Wait a minute, where is Isabel? There's Isabel.
Oh, there you are.
There's Shruti. Oh,
Here it is. I've got the chair. I've got it. No, you have to be. And you have a water. Good.
Oh, yeah, okay.
hi. So to make this work, I push this little button here to turn it on, and then push it again to turn it off.
This has been so exciting.
I registered, but I.
We're going to have to ask the candidates to, some of them will have to share a mic because they didn't have enough to in this room, and that's just technology that we have available tonight. Kate Rosenbarger cannot be here, so she sent Novella Schuck as her proxy to give her introduction, and then Novella will take a seat, and the rest of the evening will be concentrated on the women up here in front of you.
Okay, this statement is written in the voice of Kate Rosenbarger, just a heads up. So, thank you for being here tonight. I am Kate Rosenbarger, and I am running for re-election in City Council District 2. After serving on City Council for over 3 years, I still see so much potential for Bloomington. I believe that by making data-driven decisions and prioritizing equity and justice, we can make Bloomington better for future generations. I've heard people critique the current council for arguing too much, but here's the thing. I don't sit up there and applaud the status quo. I don't pat myself on the back and say Bloomington is great as is. I ask questions, I push for progress, and I try to make things better for everyone, even those who don't show up. I believe we need an inclusive government that works for everyone. I believe we must acknowledge that there are communities who have historically been excluded from local government decisions. We must support a culture that decreases barriers to participation and ensures that underrepresented voices are centered in decision-making. I believe we must continue to work for racial and social equity. We cannot build equity without addressing the root causes that lead to racial and social disparities in home ownership, cost of living, transit ridership, business ownership, and incarceration rates. Centering equity in the legislative process is a necessary step towards those ideals. I believe data and inclusive public engagement yield better and smarter solutions. We must support thoughtful, equitable, data-driven policy solutions on issues from housing and transportation to residents experiencing homelessness and policing. Public engagement must meet residents where they are and empower those who are most impacted by city decisions. We can do all this while creating abundant and attainable housing, making streets safer and more accessible, and building a climate-friendly community. You can learn more about my values and priorities on my website or by emailing Kate. Contact info is available on her handout. So, thank you.
Isabel, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I would. My name is Isabel Piedmont Smith, and I am running for re-election to the City Council. I'm a native of Bloomington. I'm a first generation of American. My parents immigrated to the United States from Germany. In the City Council, I have served, I'm in my third term. So my first term was 2008 through 2011. Then I took a term off, and then I've been serving again since January of 2016. My district has changed. My home is currently in District 5, and I will represent District 5 until the end of this year. And then the new district where my home is located is District 1. My goals for next term include, first of all, to implement the Bloomington's Climate Action Plan, which includes specific strategies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and mitigate expected climate change impacts. We are in a climate emergency, there's no doubt about it, and we need to act swiftly. This includes more funding for sidewalks, bike infrastructure, and public transit, as well as initiatives to reduce urban heat and flooding. Second priority is to make city government more transparent and inclusive of all residents we serve. This includes a continuation of my monthly constituent meetings that I started in 2008, and as well as an active outreach for greater diversity, equity, and inclusion in local government. My third priority is to strengthen our local social safety net in collaboration with other local governments, county, townships, with social service agencies, advocates, and residents with lived experience. This includes continued support for implementing the Heading Home Plan, building affordable housing in Hopewell and elsewhere, and providing more health care and substance misuse treatment options. I hope to gain your vote for a re-election to City Council in District 1.
Okay, Sue, you're next.
Sounds like such an ominous voice, doesn't it? So, good to be with you all. So, my name is Sue Scambaluri, and I am running for re-election in District 2. And so, if you are among my neighbors on the city's northwest side, I would be honored to once again earn your vote. We have a lot of important work to do. These are extraordinary days for Bloomington. We have seen remarkable growth in recent years. We are known regionally and nationally for our quality of life. But our challenge is to ensure Bloomington's resilience and sustainability. In the next few years, we've got a lot of important tasks. We're going to be launching the Hopewell site, the Hopewell neighborhood on the former hospital site. We will be moving forward with an expanded convention center as a hub for tourism, arts, and civic engagement. We have an opportunity to build out the trades district as a hub for job creation and innovation. We have an opportunity to build more housing and more affordable housing. And we have opportunities to continue to renew and strengthen our neighborhoods. On a broader level, we need to respond to the opioid crisis that is impacting Bloomington so seriously. We need to respond to issues of poverty and housing insecurity in our city. We need to care for our environment and find sustainable solutions to our challenges. We need to make informed decisions that support our social, economic, and environmental well-being, and that are based on inclusive feedback from everyone in Bloomington, from every type, every group, every type of individual in Bloomington, every perspective. So I am committed to doing so as a council member. I have not only a willingness to listen and hear and be persuaded, but a commitment to listening and including and hearing. And so that is what I bring. I hope to have the honor of your vote, and I welcome the questions as they come. And thank you again to the League of Women Voters, to the League of Women Voters, welcome to campaign season, to the Democratic Women's Caucus for this work. You have funded, inspired, recruited, supported, and trained me, and I'm grateful.
Okay, Hopi, you're next.
Is this on? It is great. Good evening. My name is Hopi Stossberg, and I am running for election in City Council District 3. First, I want to thank the Democratic Women's Caucus and Monroe County Library for hosting this event, and for all of you for coming. Throughout my life, I have been dedicated to the cause of K-12 public education. A quality system of education for all children is an essential piece of a successful society. That dedication led me to study schools, systems of funding, curriculum and assessments, child development, classroom strategies, and more, eventually earning a Master of the Arts in Teaching. After moving to Bloomington, that official study and career turned into an act of service. I've served the University Elementary PTO in various capacities for 9 years. During that time, I was president, vice president, fundraising and event committee chairs, and additionally was on 2 hiring committees within MCCSC and participated on the COVID curriculum committee. I established myself in that school community as an informed parent that teachers could trust and parents could turn to if they needed help navigating the system. I advocated for best education practices for not only my own children, but all children. Outside the system of education, I've also served the community through work with the unhoused population, managed senior care, and currently co-lead a volunteer refugee resettlement group. Through my volunteer work, I have expanded my understanding of the homeless community, experienced the difficulty of finding affordable housing in Bloomington, navigated multiple social and government support networks, and become adept at managing the challenges of transportation in Bloomington without a car. And I hope that I will earn your vote, Strasburg, for District 3 in the May primary.
Shruti, it's your turn.
Great. Is this still on? Yes, great. All right. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today and for putting all of this together. So my name is Shruti Rana. I'm running for City Council for District 5, and I'm running to build a strong and inclusive community and build on what we have already here in Bloomington. So I'll say a little bit about myself and then my priorities. So I wear multiple hats. I'm a mom, a lawyer, professor at IU. I've spent my career working for public universities and focused on their mission of service to the state and public education. And in my legal career, I focused on women's rights, human rights, and gender equality, and most specifically worked at the United Nations in the Division for the Advancement of Women and various nonprofits on gender equality. So these are the reasons that I'm running for City Council as well. These passions infuse why I'm here. So my priorities, number one, expanding access to childcare and healthcare in our community. This includes supporting universal pre-K, public education, bringing more healthcare providers and programs to our city, and enhancing the continuum of care for people and families in crisis. Second, I want to foster an environment that will bring good jobs and opportunities to Bloomington. So to me, that means strengthening city, civil, and human rights protections that we know are under siege all around our state and in our nation. And in addition, creating the resources and incentives for people and companies to invest in and stay in our city. It means increasing workforce housing and building sustainable neighborhoods, focusing on renewable energy. Third, I want to enhance public trust and collaborative leadership with our city and county council leaders working together, as well as building public trust and making sure that all voices are heard and that we can amplify voices of people all around our community as we build solutions for the future of our city. So thank you so much.
Jenny, you're next.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I am a first-time candidate. I feel a little intimidated to be here, so stay with me. The last time I did public speaking was probably 10 years ago or so. I am running. I'm Jenny Stevens, candidate for City Council 5. I'm running because I love this community. I have deep roots in this community. I'm committed to preserving the things that are the essence of Bloomington, but at the same time, working on envisioning the opportunities. And I was really heartened by what I heard in the candidates for mayor this evening. It's like we have a lot of good ideas, and I applaud that. As your council representative, I will work on all local issues, but I am concerned, in particular, with the affordable and availability of housing. with a stronger public safety system, because we do have more violent crimes happening in our community and attacks on people in our community that are just we just can't imagine that this is happening here. We have to address it. And I'm also very concerned about sustainable public infrastructure. My district has a lot of old neighborhoods. On my cul-de-sac, we have had 3 water main breaks in the last dozen years. Around the corner, they've had septic systems back up into their basements. I've been here since 1995. The most significant thing I ever did for the community was work on the MCCSC referendum in 2010. I went all in for the community then. We passed the referendum despite assurances that it wasn't going to pass. And I worked really hard for the community. It is what I will bring to you as your City Council representative, District 5, Jenny Stevens. I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Lois, it's your turn.
Thank you. My name is Lois Sabo-Skelton, and I'm running for City Council at large. I ask for your vote. As an experienced public servant, I have served on the MCCSC School Board for 14 years. I've helped people run for elections when we looked for really good candidates. But I must say this evening that I joined Regina and a few others as a founding member of the Democratic Women's Caucus. Now, I am so proud to be here with these women. These are courageous women who have come forth, and it is an honor for me to be sitting here with them. I serve with a particular style. I can't serve alone. I never have thought that. You talk, I listen, and we solve. This is how we are going to fix any problem that we have in our city, in our community. And what are those problems? I've listened to people. These are not just my opinions of what the problems are. And people have talked to me about our neighborhood concerns of annexation, of affordable housing, and expanding development in our city, the health and safety of our community, continued support for police, fire, and our social workers who are critical to the safety and health of the lives of all of our citizens. Climate change. I do believe in climate change and how it affects our daily lives. We do need to review our budget. I learned this on the school board. We need to review and check our priorities. I will finish now just by saying that those who know me, and look at that picture over there, you'll see me with a violin, with a fiddle. So my heart is also with supporting the great arts in our city. Thank you very much.
The first question will be for Sue. What prompted you to run for City Council?
Thank you for the question. It's an interesting question. I never really planned on running for public office. I'm very grateful to say that I've had some wonderful opportunities to serve in the community over the years, through Habitat for Humanity, through my church, through Rotary and other organizations. That led to a position on the Redevelopment Commission for the City of Bloomington. And that was my first opportunity to actually influence very significant decisions. Tens of millions of dollars of decisions go through the Redevelopment Commission. And I had the good fortune to learn from a number of very good mentors and people who were very helpful to me in that. That intersected with a time of what I saw as real opportunity for District 2. In many ways, I felt District 2 had been underinvested in. There were occasions when we had missed opportunities, I think, to pursue infrastructure that would better serve our neighborhoods and strengthen our neighborhoods. There were, I think, opportunities to better engage and inform and listen to our constituents. I believed I could bring that to the role of city council member. I believed I had some good mentors and some good preparation along the way, and the two came together, and so I believed I could work together. Thank you.
Okay, Hopi, what prompted you to run for city council?
I decided to run for city council because I saw a lack of a voice of somebody who was like me on city council. So I am a mother of school-age children. Nobody on city council right now can say that. And that defines a lot of me. And my interest in education also defines a lot of me. And though there are university professors on city council, there are not K-12 educators on city council. And though it's been a long time, a few years since I was in a classroom as a K-12 teacher, well, 7-12 teacher technically, my heart is still there in a lot of ways. So I saw that gap, I saw the parent gap, and I also have a lot of diverse experiences. Because I haven't been tied to a 40-hour-a-week job, I've been able to dip my toe in a lot of places in Bloomington. And I really feel like my voice and the diversity of places that I've been and things that I've seen can add something that is currently lacking. Thank you.
Shruti, what prompted you to run for city council?
Thank you. So I had two pivotal moments that really led me to take this step. So I'd been working on various community initiatives as part of our election board here, our Public Safety Commission, and the Commission on the Status of Women for the city of Bloomington, and working with lots of community groups. And then the pandemic happened, and I felt that tremendous isolation of all of our safety nets being stripped away and trying to balance our kids' education with work. And it was just a moment where I realized not only how wonderful our community was and how we were all supporting one another, but how much more support we deserved and needed to make this city, to build the future that we want. And being a part of City Council helps build that infrastructure, that support, the childcare, the healthcare, all of these things that we need. The second thing was what's been happening over the last couple of years in the state of Indiana. I've spent my career working on human rights. I've talked about how when my dad was born, he was barred by law from becoming a U.S. citizen. And I've had so many opportunities in my life and been all over the world and been able to go to law school and do all these things. And I thought, my daughter and our children need to have those opportunities too. And when I saw what was happening in our state, I thought, what we can do is do it the best we can at our city level and change things here and build the protections and honor people and value people here in our city and be a model for the rest of our state.
Jenny, what prompted you to run for city council?
Thank you for that question. I think our community has a lot of important opportunities, and we are at a crossroads. I bring a background of skills in program management, project management, budgeting, financing, and working with large bureaucracies in healthcare and at the university. And through that, I've discovered that if you have a 5-year plan or a 5-year goal and you're willing to go the distance, that you gather the people around you, you gather the information, and you come in and you listen deeply and you make a plan together and you move slowly to achieve your objectives. I've been very successful at it, working with a wide variety of people. And then I expanded it and went into the community projects where I worked with TEDx, Leadership Bloomington. I've had extensive volunteering experiences in MCCSC. I got my master's in educational leadership in 2018. I went out and worked in high poverty elementary so I could see what poverty looked like in the lives of our children. And this is the community that I want to build. These are the issues that I want to address. I want us to be a livable community, welcoming to all, embracing our diversity, embracing our voices, listening to our community members, and building a plan together. Thank you.
Lois, what prompted you to run for city council?
As a public servant, my experience with our population taught me something. The biggest opportunity that we have in our community, the most valuable one, is when we utilize our diverse population. Our community's biggest threat is when anyone is excluded because of their particular background or lifestyle. When we exclude, we lose. As a public servant, working for the school system and working on other commissions, it has always been probably my first goal to make sure that we have a population that is recognized for all its talents. And that is why, I think that's that primary reason why I come forth and served on a school board and now would like to offer my public servant abilities to keep everyone aware that we need everybody. When we exclude, we lose. Our biggest values are in every person in our community. Thank you.
Isabel, what prompted you to run for city council?
Well, let me think back. So I first ran in 2007, and what prompted me to get involved then was my experience as a native Bloomingtonian and getting involved with the Growth Policies Plan, which was our planning document for a long time, mainly for environmental reasons, because I saw the green spaces in Bloomington get built up, especially on the edges of town and sort of more and more strip malls, and I was concerned of the environmental impacts, and also that parts of Bloomington were becoming, everywhere USA, and losing that uniqueness and those local businesses that were struggling. So I served on the Environmental Commission for 4 years before I ran for office. Professionally, for 24 years, I served as a fiscal officer at Indiana University, so I know about creating budgets and keeping within budgets. Really, I'm running for re-election because there's a lot of work that remains to be done. I think the biggest kind of new initiative is a systemic change in how we do things on council, and making sure that our government is not only transparent, but it's apparent, and that means that people understand how our decision-making works and have a chance to weigh in, no matter what their socioeconomic situation or their background. People who work multiple jobs don't have time to stay up until all hours. So that's one main reason. Thank you.
Okay, Hopi, the next question is for you. Bloomington markets itself to seniors as a great place to retire. What are your views on the transportation options in our city, knowing that many seniors are not comfortable riding a bicycle or a scooter?
This is a fun question for me. Well, I'm going to call out the BT, I think it's called Access Busing, which you can call and they will bring you nearly anywhere. I'm not quite sure where this is going exactly. I know that Bloomington has put a lot into bike lanes and that sort of transportation, and there's a lot of criticism for that from populations who are not able to ride bicycles. But if you think about how many young people there are in this town who can ride bicycles, if you get all of them on bicycles, then there's a whole lot more space for people who need to drive cars. And that will make the roadways less congested, and it will actually free up parking spaces downtown. And though I know that we put this nice bike lane out on 3rd Street, but 3rd Street is a terrible place to bike. And so we need to get that bicycle infrastructure in different places, like 7th Street, honestly, because then the cars can be on the main drag for cars. So I guess I tend to think that cars have it easy still, especially if we can get more young people on bicycles who can be on bicycles.
Okay, Shruti, same question. Bloomington markets itself to seniors as a great place to retire. What are your views on the transportation options in our city, knowing that many seniors are not comfortable riding a bicycle or a scooter?
I think access to public transportation and expanding and supporting public transportation is incredibly important, and that's something that I've utilized and seen throughout my whole life and benefits everyone, especially seniors. And I think back to two things. So first, the very first time I ever got a car in my life was when I moved to Bloomington. So I moved from nothing to a minivan, so that was interesting. But my entire life I've taken public transportation, and it's where you get to see the rest, you interact with everyone in the community, and you realize how important accessibility is. And I'm inspired by, I've learned about the story of the students at the University of California who fought for curb cuts because they couldn't get to class because their wheelchairs couldn't go on the roads and sidewalks. And when curb cuts were put in, they benefited everyone. I mean, I benefit from them all the time when I'm pushing a stroller, and they benefit everyone in the community. So if we can build a stronger public transportation system with greater access, bringing people closer to the points where they live and to the places they want to go, I think that is the path forward. And we can start with little things like curb cuts and more sidewalks, and then expand to stronger public transportation.
Okay, Jenny, Bloomington markets itself to seniors as a great place to retire. What are your views on the transportation options, knowing that many seniors are not comfortable with bicycles or scooters?
I think that we need to really consider seniors and their needs. Seniors want to hold on to their driver's license, and they want to drive in this town, and it's hard because they prefer a vehicle that sits up higher. And our city's put in a lot of bump-out curves you can't see in a higher vehicle. Seniors also would maybe have trouble getting to the bus routes. They would have to walk to where the bus routes are. So if we expand busing, like we have for some seniors, maybe farther into neighborhoods, we can certainly allow them to be in vehicles, but we also have to do things that ensure that they have right-of-way. When we talk about shutting down Kirkwood, for instance, we are creating impediments to seniors getting where they are. As a parent of two individuals who have done long-distance cycling rides and have ridden extensively in the city and ridden before they were drivers, I will tell you that some of the things we're doing with bike lanes in this community are not safe for cyclists, and I hear about it all the time. Thank you.
Okay, Lois, what are your views on our transportation options in our city?
Well, I really can't repeat, because we're being taped here, of what some people have told me they think of the situation with our transportation. But I will kind of expand around it a little bit. I think we truly need to stop and think about this, and it would be very interesting for us to take a survey with the different age groups in our community and what they really feel they need. Our older citizens don't really ride bicycles. They need their car. I can't repeat what some people have told me about the scooters. And so we need to rethink. It seems things are rather out of control in what has been allowed. We wake up every day and some new way of transportation has been allowed. I think we need to step back, and I do think We need to, boy, would it be fun to have a town hall and invite everybody, from the different areas, giving their opinions on what they think we ought to do. I think we'd be there for a couple of days.
Isabel, what are your views on the transportation options in our city?
I think this is a good question. I think that there have been a lot of great improvements for bicycle transportation. I ride my bike frequently, and I love some of the new bike lanes and options that we have. I would agree with Hopi that the more people who can bike should bike, and that will make it a little bit easier for those who cannot bike to drive. I think when we look at options in view of our climate emergency, we do need to encourage people to use other transportation modes, and Bloomington Transit is getting an injection of $3.8 million per year for 5 years from the modest increase in the local income tax that we passed last year. And I think that will go a long way to increasing the frequency of routes, having new routes. An East-West Express route is also part of the long-range plan. So it'll make it easier to take the bus. In addition, electric cars are coming along. Unfortunately, most people will plug them in and power them through coal-fired power plants here in Indiana. The city has incentivized the installation of solar panels through which you could eventually, plug in your car to power it at least partially with solar. So I think that's a good direction, and we should continue incentivizing that. That's kind of indirectly related to transportation, but another good path we're going down.
Sue, what are your views on the transportation options in our city?
Thank you for the question. I think this is one area in which I am genuinely excited about some of the progress we're making. I was pleased to work with my colleagues last year on the modest increase, and I think that's a fair way to characterize it, in the economic development local income tax, and the amount of that is going to be dedicated to public transit, I think, is going to be game-changing for the city of Bloomington. I think we are going to be in a position to move more toward choice ridership, those who have the option of driving or the option of some other method of transportation, but who choose to take public transit because it's more convenient, because it stops closer to their home, because it comes more frequently. So I think those investments in public transit are going to be very important. I think we also have an opportunity to experiment with variations on public transit like microtransit. There are large areas of District 2 in particular that are not just some are just underserved, some are unserved by public transit. And I think it's critical that we address that at some point, and I think there are different tools in this toolbox with which we can do that. I'm also supportive of exploring options to expand transit services outside city limits to education and employment centers as well, and I think that's a critical step in the coming days. So, thank you.
We have time for one question from the audience, and Shruti, this will be your question to begin with. What will you do to encourage more residents to commit to renewable energy and embrace a sustainable lifestyle?
I think there are a number of things that we can do. We're really poised at a critical moment in terms of renewable energy. We have a federal plan that is dedicating funds to cities and local areas, and I will help us apply for that funding and then provide incentives for homes and businesses to use as much renewable energy as possible and think about ways to have climate resilience, adapt to what's happening, but also move forward in sustainable ways.
Jenny, what will you do to encourage more residents to commit to renewable energy and embrace a sustainable lifestyle?
I think we need to look within city services and role model some of the things that we would like private residents to do, but we also need to look at the funding options, which could be vast. For example, I would like to put solar panels on my paid-for home, on the roof. If by chance I could somehow finance that through my property taxes or through some program within the city so that I could be incentivized to do that, if I could get tax breaks on that, that would be maybe something that I would do. So I think beyond that, we could do educational programs on the small things we can do in our homes in terms of water flow, in terms of fluorescent lighting, in terms of composting. We have some programs on that, but we need to do better outreach on that to make it easier and approachable and acceptable and just a way of life. Thank you.
Okay, Lois, what will you do to encourage more residents to commit to renewable energy and embrace a sustainable lifestyle?
The bottom line really here is education. The more we can make people realize what we actually can accomplish, due to climate change and these problems. Some people have a hard time believing that something is happening with our climate. All you have to do is walk outside today, this evening. Maybe it will be snowing and maybe it will be 70 degrees. We don't know yet. Something is happening. Secondly, if you're going to expect anybody to embrace anything, it has to be two things. It has to be affordable and it has to be available. So these three ideas of education, affordability, and availability, I think there is where we start if we want to engage our community and get them to start to think about this. Thank you.
Isabel, what will you do to encourage more residents to commit to renewable energy and embrace a sustainable lifestyle?
Well, I've been serving on the Monroe County Solid Waste Management Board for the last 4 years, and that board works to have educational programs to reduce waste in the community. First of all, through greater process efficiencies, then through composting, recycling, and the city of Bloomington actually has a compost program for downtown restaurants currently. The Waste District is working with the city on a compost pilot program for people who live in apartment buildings. So there are a lot of initiatives to try to get the public involved in greater sustainability. We do have a solar energy efficiency and lighting program with the city, which gives grants to organizations to improve energy efficiency of their buildings and put solar panels on their roofs. We do also have commercial rebates and financing available for installing solar. So the city has done a lot, and actually, my husband and I were one beneficiary of the Solarized Bloomington program, which has been going on for many years, where the city makes a commitment to kind of a bulk buying of solar panels and installation, and residents can thus get a discount on that installation. Now we just have to get the state of Indiana to bring back the tax credits that they have gradually been chipping away at for solar. Thank you.
Sue, what will you do to encourage residents to commit to renewable energy and embrace a sustainable lifestyle?
Waiting for the Tinkerbell to stop. Oh, let's not worry about it. Let's just press on. Some very good ideas, I think. You've already heard some very good ideas from this group, particularly around education and increasing the convenience and availability around options. I think that outreach and education needs to be consistent and persistent. I think very often we will pay attention to one particular option at a time. We'll just pay attention and focus on composting, or just pay attention and focus on leafing. I think we have an opportunity to do a couple things. First of all, to be more consistent and persistent in those educational programs, and also to leverage the relationships we have with our neighborhoods. If we're doing our jobs well as city council representatives, we know our neighborhoods well. We understand who the opinion leaders are in neighborhoods, and we can listen and gather feedback about how these programs can benefit those neighborhoods and help the neighborhoods do that. So I think there's an opportunity to use that knowledge and use those relationships that we have to accomplish that. So, thanks.
Okay, and Hopi, what will you do to encourage residents to commit to renewable energy and embrace a sustainable lifestyle?
Well, I'm really glad that I got this question last so that I could write down all the things that my family already does and that we can be a model for other families for how to live healthy, renewable lifestyles. So, to that end, my family has solar panels. We have an electric bicycle. We conscientiously use heating and cooling in terms of opening windows and closing windows and just being conscientious of the weather. We compost. We have a backyard garden. Thank you, Mom. She's back there in the audience. She helps a lot. I bring my own bags to the grocery store and the clothing store and any other store that I happen to go in, including produce bags. I line dry everything. I have not owned a dryer in my entire adult life, okay? And that includes cloth diapering 2 children, okay? I live it, and I can help other people live it. It is absolutely possible.
Okay, we are now at the final question. So I'm going to begin with Jenny Stevens. As a closing statement, please tell us why you are the better candidate for this position, and you have 90 seconds.
I think I would focus on my love of operations, on the fact that I deeply love operations, and I really try to understand everything that goes into operations. And beyond that, I have really good fiscal background budgeting. The role on City Council is one of governing, but it is also fiscal oversight. It's understanding operations, and it's understanding how to integrate all of that knowledge and also understand the regulations that a city has to follow, federal, state, local. It is what I have done in all my positions. I have accomplished these significant goals and objectives, not alone, but with many others, always for a longer view, building team, working together, and thinking about the end user in sight. It is what I will do for you. I'm Jenny Stevens for City Council, District 5, and I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Lois, your closing statement telling us why you are the better candidate.
I'm going to start by saying that everybody up here deserves to be considered. As I said, this is the Democratic Women's Caucus. We support each other. For myself, as a public servant, I have that style where when someone asks me, what should we do? I go, no, you talk to me. You tell me what we should do. And I listen. And then together we're going to solve that. Whatever the issue is, whatever comes up, I have one mindset that I use. It's 3 very important points: diversity, equity, and inclusion. When we look through these lenses, when we consider whatever problem we have in our community, this means we include thinking about everybody. And we are stronger for it when we use everybody's talents. And that is what I think about when I work for you as a public servant. Lois Sabo-Skelton, I'm running for City Council at large. There's quite a list of people running at large. You can only pick 3. I hope I will be one of them. Thank you.
Next is Isabel. Please tell us why you are the better candidate for this position.
Well, I'm going to just reflect upon why I think I'm a good candidate. I haven't talked to my opponent and have eager to hear what he has to say. I agree that it's very important to listen. But if you're only listening, you're only hearing people who are naturally going to come forward and talk to you. As in my career in council, I've seen that these are a very small subset of the residents that I represent. So I think it's very important to not just invite more people to the table, but reconsider how the table is built. Build a table with other people who normally don't have a voice in government. And that requires a lot of hard work and a lot of outreach, and that's what I pledge to do. I think what I mentioned earlier about transparent and apparent government is very important, that we don't just have our meetings on Wednesday nights and listen to only the people that are there, but also have listening sessions, go out to where the people are. And although I'm in my third term on the City Council, I welcome new perspectives on how we do things and new ideas for policies that make Bloomington more welcoming, make our growth more sustainable, and serve all residents more equitably. Thank you for the Democratic Women's Caucus for organizing this event, and on to my colleague.
Okay, next, Sue, please tell us why you are the better candidate for this position.
Thank you for the question. And again, thank you to the Democratic Women's Caucus for this opportunity. As I think about the role, having been on council for a few years, I think what allows us to do our best work, what allows us to make the best decisions for our city, not always perfect, but the best possible decisions for our city, we need public servants, emphasis on the word servant. We need public servants with some very specific qualities. I think first is an energy and a work ethic. I show up prepared, and I do my homework. And I think that becomes especially critical as our issues become more complex and more nuanced. I have a commitment to listening and engaging the residents I serve. One of my greatest points of pride in the last 3 years is the fact that I have been able to involve multiple neighborhoods in
library patrons. The library will close in 15 minutes. Please gather your materials and take them to the checkout desk on the first or second floor. Patrons using library computers are reminded that the computers will shut down a few minutes before closing. Thank you for coming to the Monroe County Public Library.
And Sue, please finish your statement. It says, one of my greatest points of pride is that I've been able to involve neighborhoods and residents in some really key questions that have affected our district, like the closure of a road in a major park. So I've seen that increased activity, and I've taken a lot of pride in being able to help contribute to that. Finally, I think we need people who can dig into the complexity and nuance of an issue or a question that comes before us. The big questions we have, the big issues we deal with are never just about one issue. They're never just about sustainability or just about economic development or just about poverty. They exist at the intersection of multiple issues, and I think we need individuals who could dig into that. I think I bring those qualities to the City Council. I am eager to serve another term and serve my residents. I invite you to learn more about my campaign at sueforcitycouncil.com. I hope I can earn your vote if you are among my neighbors. So, thank you.
Hopi, please tell us why you are the better candidate for this position.
Thank you. District 3 is a geographically diverse district with many stakeholders. My lived experiences have provided me with the background and understanding necessary, as well as the communication tools required to well serve the citizens of District 3. I invest time in the things that I care about and the things that I think are important. And I think that Bloomington is important, and I think that District 3 is important. I work hard. I am very interested in being the representative for Council District 3. And what that means is not getting what I want or what I need. It is about figuring out what the citizens of District 3 need, what those citizens want, what is required for them to have the best possible experience living in Bloomington. And I think that I'm very well equipped to do that job based on my life experiences, and I'm really interested in it. And I'm really interested in reaching out to the citizens of District 3 where they are and not always expecting them to come to me. As Isabel said, kind of redefining that table and how you invite people to the table, where you set up the table. And I think that I would do that very, very well. So I hope that I have earned your vote for District 3 representative if you are in District 3. And if you want any more information about me or my campaign, you can find it at hopi.stasberg.com. Thank you.
And Shruti, please tell us why you are the better candidate for this position.
So I will share an inspiration and a promise. Several years ago, in the wake of the FedEx shootings, I heard an interview of a sick gentleman who was asked, when you're faced with this kind of bias and discrimination, doesn't it make you want to give up or doesn't it make you want to leave? And he said, no. What it means to me is that I'm going to turn around and I'm going to build roots into the foundation so deep that they shift the bedrock upon which this country was built. And that will be my promise to you, that I will fight for you, I will fight for my daughter, I will fight for our children, and I will fight for a better future for us. And I will do everything in my power to build the strongest roots and the deepest roots. And we know that even the smallest root can crack a stone, and that in those cracks, flowers can grow. And that roots work together and they build these foundations that sustain us. And that is what I will do for all of you, and working together with all of you for the future that I think we deserve.
I believe that Penny has a few closing remarks for us.
I just want to thank everyone who's been with us tonight. The candidates have been fantastic. They've been open. They've shared their thoughts, their ideas. This has been a pretty amazing evening. And so thank you all. Thank you, Katz. Thank you especially Susan Luther. And thank you to everyone who helped put this on this evening. We do need to exit quickly, so thank you all.